Hello my friends and welcome back to weisworld. Today I'm going to be using my recently acquired watercolor skills, if you can call them skills. I have been learning to use these watercolors. I found it to be a pretty cheap and effective way to color the work that I've been doing. Have bought myself some new paintbrushes to try out too, and I hope to be able to pull off a reasonably decent canvas of One Punch Man to hang up in the studio here. So all these new brushes, a few pencils to sketch it out. I've got a couple of these cheap canvases that I picked up from the art and craft store, and yeah, I'm going to go and pencil this out and then we'll come back and start. Okay, so first things first, I'm using a reference I found, just a simple reference I found on Google Images of One Punch Man. As you probably have seen, this has been used a few times, this generic image. What I've started off by doing is finding just a colour from my palette that matches, and we're just trying to get the colour in as solidly as possible. I found if you try and use less water at this stage, when you're trying to put on a colour more solidly, you need to use less water on the brush. Try not to waterlog the brushes. I did learn this the hard way. It seems to take down on a canvas quite a lot easier, if you like, than it does on paper. I mean, you can, if you use watercolor specific paper, it does work out pretty well, but on a canvas it seems to come up particularly well. So I've put down the solid color for the glove as well, the solid red, and just added in a few of the darker tones. I've used the gray straight out of the palette here and just made sure that my brush has got a nice little bit of water on it, so I've dipped it and then not wiped it off too much, and just got this solid, the sort of the gray over in the areas, just copying exactly from the reference really. I do use my other pad to sort of mix other little colours together. So for the cape, for instance, I've mixed in 1 part blue with about 30 parts of white because I've done it too strong to start with. And again, getting all these base colours on as solidly as possible, you know, the larger works. This bit, when I started doing the lining, I find that the brush I'm actually using there, I don't know if you can see it really well, it's sort of like it's a thin brush, but it's quite long, and although it looks like a small easy to control brush, the length of the actual bristles makes it quite inconsistent. So when I got to the face, which you'll see in a minute, I swapped for a square headed brush and then used it on its side. I think with more practice you can use these brushes pretty successfully and get nice difference in your line consistency. So you know, dependent on how you push it down, you can get thicker lines, but in this stage I'm still just sort of practicing the basics. Again, I don't even know if I'm doing a lot of this right, but you know, as long as the end result looks decent enough to put on your wall, then that's all that really matters. The face, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty worried about doing the face with a paintbrush because I'm not going to tell you porcupines, I've never tried to paint small details with paintbrushes before. I've always chickened out and used a pen or a liner of some sort, and I just thought that if I used a pen on the canvas it would bleed and ruin it. So now I'm going in, now I've done a lot of the highlights there. I'm not too good at sort of sticking at one thing, so most people that can already do watercolors probably watch this would think, what are you doing? But I kind of shoot around all over the painting. But you know, again, as long as you're pulling out a fairly reasonable end result, you know, you just keep getting better and trying to grow from that. So I just sort of, I must have at the last minute remembered that I needed to actually add in the details there and just rush that in now, because at this point now I'm focusing more on the highlights. So getting in any of the, you know, picking out any of the really lighter parts and adding on my white paint with no dilution at all, just using it straight as it is, straight from the squirty little tube there. Trying to get it in all the areas that it needs to be in. And again, I haven't really had any form of practice doing this. I might, once I've got a bit more in my sketchbook, do like a sketchbook tour. But at the moment there's three 3 bits of work aside from this I've done in watercolors, apart from about 10 years ago when I practiced another time and failed horribly. Yeah, a last minute decided that it didn't look right just sitting on the canvas, so I just whacked in some blue. And then, being the adventurous kind of guy I am, I found that sponge brush head that you can see me using there, and attempted to put some clouds on, just using some watered down white, and that didn't really work, so then I just used the white straight away as it was, finding that I needed to highlight it a little bit more, so I just pulled out my brush and sort of feathered some of the edges in for the clouds. But again, there's probably, I'll probably at a later date learn how to do them for real. So there it is. Why official. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Subscribe and like. See you next time. Bye.